Hello, I'm Chris Burns, and welcome to The Network, where we connect into a matrix of newsmakers to get to the heart of an issue. And watch out, they've got to answer in 25 seconds or less, or else. Let's take a look at that issue right now.
The Greek street surges with anger as spending cuts and tax increases intensify. Many see the austerity imposed by the EU ECB IMF Troika as aggravating the country's recession. And yet the government is obliged to slash pensions and wages to qualify for the next €8 billion bailout. Without it, the Greek government runs out of cash, what some say could trigger a global financial meltdown. Meanwhile, Germans have been turning against Chancellor Angela Merkel in recent state elections as she grudgingly pays for more bailouts. Finland demands collateral for any future loans to Greece, and others follow.
Vote is now closed.
Aiming to defuse the crisis, the European Union devises a six-pack of measures to enforce fiscal responsibility, including fines and sanctions, coupled with a call for Eurobonds. A move toward EU economic governance, some say, is long overdue. Others fear it's the making of a superstate and that Greece should simply default.
Now, wired into this edition of The Network is from here, Brussels, in the European Parliament, Maria Eleni Kopa, a Greek socialist MEP who's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and her party, of course, leads the embattled government in Athens. From Helsinki, Alex Stubb, Finnish Minister for European Affairs and Foreign Trade. He says it's not the European Union that's forcing Greece towards structural changes, it's the markets. And also here in Brussels, Kausten Bjeski, senior economist at ING, who says the ECB's recent scaling back on the government bond purchases is a reality check that the central bank is reluctant to intervene in a large scale. Let's start with a question for all of you, starting with Maria. Let me ask you, first of all, we're seeing the government in Greece is saying now they're falling short of their targets on the budget. Why are we witnessing austerity killing the patient? Isn't it time to default now?
There is no time to default. The Greek government, the Greek people are determined to fight and make all the necessary sacrifice in order to be in the Eurozone and keep the position there. Now we have an enormous austerity program with enormous sacrifices, and we are ready to go on with it. The government and the people are determined.
All right, Minister, if you could answer that, and you're perhaps grateful that you insisted on collateral now, right?
Well, I don't think that's really the issue. For us, it's not an issue of money, it's an issue of principle. And if we agree that we do something, then we do it. And, you know, I should give credit to the Greek people as well. I mean, they're going through very tough times, and people seem to forget that. They're being pushed by the markets and, of course, by the ECB, by the European Commission, and by the IMF.
Okay, Carsten, we're hearing on the political side, it sounds very conciliatory, but let's call a spade a spade. What's going to happen now?
I think the debt restructuring is too early because the Eurozone is not prepared actually to avoid contagion. Only if the Eurozone is ready to avoid contagion, then we could see a Greek default.
Okay, but maybe a question to Maria. Default was seen unthinkable, but isn't the threat the only real leverage to force the Greek government and the Greek politicians to follow through?
We don't work on a plan B. We have the decisions of the Council of 21st of July, and we will follow on this path. There is no plan B for Greece, no plan B for the Greek people.
Carsten, Argentina defaulted in 2002. They recovered. Why can't Greece?
I think, of course, they can. If you look at the numbers, Greek debt ratio is expected to be around 160, 170% of GDP. That's a lot. It would take really a decade, if ever, Greece could grow out of its debt. So a debt restructuring is highly likely in the coming years.
Do you see, what kind of a haircut do you see on that restructuring? Some are talking about 50%.
I think we're talking about probably 30% to reduce debt by 30%. So this could return Greece to a sustainable path.
Okay, Minister, what about this collateral idea? Shouldn't that be adopted on a European level?
Well, I think it was a very specific deal between Finland and Greece. It took a long time to negotiate. Now we've reached an agreement which can be accepted by both Greece and Finland and the rest of the Eurozone. It was very strongly linked to those countries that have a AAA rating, and that's why we could accept it.
But doesn't this exhibit cracks in the EU system, in the Euro and the whole European Union? Isn't this a danger?
No, I don't think so. Basically, if we have a monetary union, a common currency, in the long run, we need more economic policy coordination. In the meanwhile, we're trying to find various creative solutions, and I think we've just come up with one.
But, Maria, don't you think this is causing problems, isn't it? It's really irritated the Greek government, and this could open up the door for other demands for this kind of arrangement.
We managed to find a solution on a very sensitive issue with Finland. Our position is that we need more Europe, and with a real economic governance, these questions can be dealt within the Eurozone.
Okay, well, economic governance, that's a big question. I mean, should there perhaps be an EU finance minister with teeth? Or would that irritate so many governments that it would be unacceptable? Let's ask the minister.
Well, I think there should be a budget czar, and I say this carefully because Finland has had experiences with various czars, but someone who has similar powers that the competition commissioner has on surveying competition. We should have a similar budget czar. This means, yes, like Maria said, more Europe and more tougher rules.
What about expanding the EFSF, the European Financial Stability Facility? Some say that it should be increased, Karsten, to some 2 trillion euros to really have an effect of really addressing this issue. Others say this is throwing good money at bad. What do you think?
I think it's necessary because if you look, we're not in a political union yet. This means we need to accept that debt restructuring is possible, but it can only be possible if we have this anti-contagion tool. And this would be an increased EFSF. The current EFSF will not be sufficient to really limit contagion.
Okay. Maria, the Greek government approval rating is under 20%. There are more strikes ahead. How can we be sure the government can carry out what it's promising to do, or should we not have maybe some new elections sooner rather than later?
Elections are for the moment out of question. The government has a comfortable majority in the parliament. People on their side, they have reasons to be angry. But anyway, you cannot change a country in one night. Even Angela Merkel admitted that.
Okay. George Soros says the EU should prepare for a Greek, Portuguese, even an Irish exit from the euro, or is preparation enough to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, Minister? What do you think?
Well, I think, to be quite honest, I have a lot of respect for George Soros, but that is utter rubbish. I think kicking out countries from the Eurozone is completely out of the question. It is not even a last resort one. We must have a look at future rules, and that is the key. So 2 things we need to do. 1, solve the crisis as it stands, and I think we will do that with Greece and ring-fencing that. And then 2nd, we need tougher rules for the future. But kicking some outside of the Eurozone, it would only benefit some of the sharks in the markets.
Okay, Karsten, what do you think about that? What do you think about what Soros is suggesting?
I fully agree with the minister. Really, kicking out other countries would be the ultimate chaos, and that's something we really need to avoid. And also, politicians need to make sure that this is going to be ruled out definitely.
Is it time for the European Union to now say that, look, there's this crisis in Greece, we have to address this now? If we don't, we'll have a crisis that is going to go beyond Greece. How imperative is it that the European Union support Greece right now? To Maria.
The decision was very clear. I think it is imperative because Greece is only the symptom. It's not the cause of the problem. And now, with all the contagion to Ireland, Portugal, everybody understands that. So it's a question of unity of the Eurozone. It's the question of the future of the Euro. And I don't believe that the Eurozone will be a better place without Greece or eventually without other countries.
Okay, but do we not see then a spiral going here where Greece is going to have to continue cutting its budget, and that is continuing to cause a deeper recession? Isn't this just a downward spiral that you can't pull out of? Karsten, what do you think?
It's a downward spiral you really get out of not very easily. And this means we're going to solve the crisis right now. We're going to limit contagion. But in a couple of years, we really need to talk about how to create growth again in the peripheral countries. Because otherwise, we're going to keep this difference between the core Eurozone countries and the peripherals in terms of growth differences.
Thanks, Karsten. That's all the time we got for now. Let's thank all of our guests, Maria Eleni Kopa, Alex Stubb, and Karsten Jeske. I'm Chris Burns, and until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.